To begin, let me hand out, give you a couple handouts here. Take one each of these and pass it around. And one each of these and pass it around. The handout that has a drawing of Luther on the front is produced by what I think is one of the greatest pastors who has ever lived, and that's my dad. My dad has produced that pamphlet. So you not only get Pastor Andrae the Lesser tonight, you get a little bit of Pastor Andrae the Greater as well. So, and that contains a chronology of some important dates in Luther's life, as well as an overview of some of the things that he did, and a summary really of his theology through the motto of the Reformation of the four solas, the four alones, Scripture, faith, grace, and Christ on the back. So you should have, when these all have gone around, you should have two handouts. One, as I said, with a picture of Luther on the front and back, actually. There's a picture of him on the front and back. And another one coming around with no pictures. Well, or there's a Luther seal on it. And that one, so the one says at the top, a man of earth and God. And the other one says Luther's, or Martin Luther, chronological theological development. Okay? Now, I'm much more of a systematician than a historian. In other words, systematic theology, what we might call doctrine, dogmatics, is more my, takes more of my interest in history, although history is becoming an increasing interest for me. Our other pastor at First Trinity is more the historian, to be sure. So what I'm going to do tonight is place the emphasis on Luther's impact through his theology, through his confession, through what he taught and believed. We will take a brief overview and place that in the context of the history, however. And if you want more, we can always come back to that at the end. We'll have a Q&A and discussion at the end. I'll leave plenty of time. As we go now, I simply want to work through the presentation, because what I found is that a lot of times when folks have questions, I end up answering it later on in my presentation. So, if you have questions that come to mind or comments, jot them down, and at the end, the plan is to leave plenty of time for that. But let's take a look at the handout that says, a man of earth and God, Luther, giant of his time and ours. In the left-hand column there, you have important dates in Luther's life. And I'm just kind of going to run through these real quickly. Born in 1483, university student in 1501, became a monk, technically a friar, but for us the difference is negligible. In 1505, ordained a priest a couple years later. And then a crucial turning point for him was his father confessor, Johann von Staupitz, urging him to become a professor and to teach at the University of Wittenberg. Became a doctor in 1512, doctor of theology. Posted his 95 Theses on October 31st, 1517. So that's usually given as the date of the beginning of the Reformation. And so Lutherans all over the world, Lutheran churches all over the world, are looking toward 2017 as the 500th anniversary, with celebrations all over, and especially in Germany, of course. 1520, he was warned in June that he would have 60 days to recant his teachings, not only found in the 95 Theses, but in other writings, and he burned that papal bull. That was his reaction. He burned it on the 61st day. And then the papal bull that actually excommunicated him was actually in 1521. And you have some of those dates on the other handout, the chronological theological developments. If you look at the bottom of that one on footnote 1, it mentions that the papal bull Exsurge Domini was issued 15th June, published the 24th, gave Luther 60 days to recant or be excommunicated. He burned it December 10th. Then the bull Decet Romanum Pontificum on January 3rd formally excommunicated him. He still had the opportunity given by the emperor at the Diet of Worms to recant, and of course he gave his famous words, "I cannot recant unless proven by plain reason or scripture. Here I stand, so help me God," and he did not recant. And then the imperial edict of Worms, following up on the Diet, a month later declared him an outlaw. In order to protect him then, he was kidnapped, quote unquote, by friends, by his elector and his colleagues, not colleagues, but his soldiers, I guess, really, and brought to the Wartburg Castle, where he translated the New Testament into German and wrote several other books. Returned to Wittenberg in 1522, married Katie von Bora in 1525. 1529, published the Large Catechism and the Small Catechism. The Small Catechism is by far the most widely used text in Lutheran churches outside of Scripture, by far. Luther called it the layman's Bible. It is a summary of the chief doctrines of the faith. The Catechism itself, a lot of Lutherans think when we say the Catechism, when a Lutheran say the Catechism, they always mean Luther's Small Catechism. But the Catechism is simply the three parts, that is the Ten Commandments, the Creed, and the Lord's Prayer. That's the Catechism. Luther, when he wrote his Catechism, also, as you see, called an Enchiridion. An Enchiridion was a small dagger that folks could carry under their cloak to protect themselves when traveling. So Luther's idea was learning this and knowing this will protect you in your spiritual battles. It will serve as a little dagger. And you can see it will fit nicely inside your pocket, and you can use it from now on as a little spiritual dagger if you wish. He added to that the teachings on the sacraments as well. Lord's Supper, baptism, and confession absolution, as well as prayers for morning and evening and at mealtime, and a list of scripture passages for various callings in life. It's by far the most widely used, and it was written for the home. As it says at the top of each teaching, as the head of the household should teach to his family. He followed it up a month later with the Large Catechism. It was larger than the Small Catechism. It was longer, and it was for pastors, whom he had found woefully inadequate in many of their tasks. And he said, this is for pastors to learn and to use in their preaching and teaching in their congregations.